Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Welcome back to Choker TV Modified. You know, I like doing interviews. I like doing things about other subject matter, other channel. But today, I have a special interview. And the reason why it's special because seated here today is my former boss and the former superintendent of the Chicago Police Department, JODY Weiss. So we're gonna sit back and we're gonna talk about some things. So stay tuned. So how are you doing this morning?
I'm doing great.
Okay. So now, you guys don't know this, but we're in Arizona. We're in Scottsdale, Arizona. So you're residing here now, right?
Yes, I am.
Okay. So you've been here for how long since you left the?
Oh, let's see. We left 2016 from Chicago, so it's that time flies. It's gonna be 7 years in May.
7 years. 7 years. So I guess one of the big question is, do you miss Chicago?
You know, as everybody always says, you miss the people. I miss somebody like you. I miss other guys and gals that I've worked with. You miss that. I'm not really a city guy, so I don't miss the big city. My wife does. She missed some of those stores she used to shop in, and there's some amazing restaurants. But I'm much happier out here in the desert. It kind of gets me back to home, which is the more laid back, smaller town area, and I just like the dry heat. Being from Florida, it's hot, it's muggy, it's buggy. And out here, you don't have a lot of bugs. You might have a rattlesnake, but you don't have the annoying little bugs that bite you all the time. But pretty happy out here. So I probably don't miss Chicago in that sense, other than the people that I had the privilege to work with and interact with for 3 years with the police department, and then like another 4 or 5 with when I was working with Accenture.
Okay. And are you currently working now?
Yeah, I'm in a great position right now. I'm kind of doing a part-time work in a bunch of different fields. There's a company called MBO Partners. It's kind of a pass-through, and my main client with them is Accenture, but I do contract work with them. Okay. That will allow me to do other things. Accenture was real strict. I couldn't do anything else other than Accenture work. So with this, I can teach firearms, I can do some investigations, I can do some wrongful death and wrongful conviction reviews for some law firms. So it gives me a lot of latitude to do different things. And then I also, kind of my main client would be Accenture to do consulting work with them. And then a couple product companies I've done work for that I like their product and I'll help sell that to law enforcement agencies.
Okay, that seems like a lot of stuff you're able to do, which kind of leads me back to, and I know this question has been asked to you. So from what you just said, it seems like you'd probably be a good fit to go back to Chicago if you were asked to go back to be a superintendent. Would you consider that? Now, I know the answer you already gave at another interview, but...
Yeah, I never say never about things because things come up and things change, but, I'm 65 right now. I feel good. I'm working out every day, hiking, doing stuff. That's a stressful job. Do I think I have the energy for it? I do. But the biggest thing, Walt, for me is I have to look at a situation and number one, is it winnable? Okay. When I took the job, I sat down with the mayor for 3 hours, Mayor Daley. I probably said 10 words. I just listened to him talk and pledge his support and everything he wanted to do. And it kind of aligned with what I would want to do going into a job like that. And to his credit, he kept his promises on pretty much everything he said.
Okay.
Right now, there's a lot of variables in that equation right now.
Okay.
I never worked with Kim Foxx. I haven't heard great things about her. I think she's kind of anti-police.
Okay.
And that's a tough situation. You're always going to have natural tension between the cops and the investigators and the attorneys. The attorneys, are going to say, the case isn't strong enough. The cops are going, of course it's strong enough. You don't have any courage to take the case forward. So there's always that natural tension.
Okay.
But when it seems like everything is against the police, that's a tough situation to be in. And then this new mayor, I don't know him at all. From what he said since he's won, to me it's not a great situation.
Okay.
I think there's a lot of issues he's going to have to overcome, and I think there's going to be a very difficult time finding a new superintendent, and I would say there's going to be a hard time recruiting police officers in Chicago. You don't want to work a system where you just feel like you're fighting against everybody. You're fighting against City Hall, you're fighting against the prosecutors, you're fighting against some of these crazy laws that Pritzker's trying to put through, like this no cash bail. I mean, there's a lot of adverse situations for police officers and law enforcement in general to have to overcome in Chicago, and I just think it's going to be a very challenging time. So, long answer to very short answer, Hell no, I would not go back and take that position.
Well, I got to interject too, because in some of the past videos, I've told you guys that I used to be the police for 30 years. And I agree with him, because when you have someone that tells you, and I'm going by what I saw in the video, that we're going to defund the police, and we've seen nationwide that don't work. It does not work. Okay, and then when you see other things against the police, and these are the people in the front line who they have to protect not only the citizens but businesses and other different entities. So I agree that it's hard. And then I actually was talking to a police officer the other day, and I was like, hey man, as I always say, be careful out here. And I was like, and he was like, I said, well, hopefully, you guys are gonna get some more officers. And his response to me is, don't nobody want this job. He said, so I'm doing good. He's like, I'm just gonna make more overtime. I said, okay, well, honestly, I had to agree with him, so. But what do you think would be maybe a possible solution? I think you kind of said in the last answer, to combating the crime. You know what I mean? To kind of bringing it down. We know supporting the police would help. Funding the police would help.
Yeah. Yeah.
What else?
There's just so many facets. I mean,
it is.
Everybody wants to blame the guys and gals in uniform. You guys got to do a better job. You guys suck. Thank you.
Okay.
But it's bigger than that. First off, and I know in another interview I was talking about, it's almost like the new mayor, if he's a statesman, he's got to create almost like a culture in Chicago. Like every responsible party, the criminal justice system, the faith-based community, the education system, the business communities, everybody that's got a stake in the game in Chicago has to say, you know what, we're tired of seeing Chicago as the poster child for like just unruly street violence. Think of the number of young black men that have been killed in Chicago.
Oh yeah.
It's outrageous. And my heart goes out to those 6 Christians that were killed in Nashville. That's a normal, if I hate to even use the word, that is a normal Saturday night in Chicago.
Oh, it
and
is.
nobody says a word.
It is.
And it's
It is.
horrible, these school shootings. But you know what? All we want to do is take the firearms out of it. And I know we'll probably get into the whole firearms issue.
Oh yeah, you brought it up now. Okay.
But we've got to address the bigger picture. So if I was the mayor, I would try to build a coalition of people who are saying we will not accept this violence. That means you got to get the judges to start prosecuting. That's what was one of my biggest frustrations when I was superintendent. Tim Evans is a gentleman. He's a very nice man. He swore me in. But in my opinion, he does not have the leadership or the courage to demand that some of these judges actually enforce the laws that Illinois has on the book. There's some powerful laws against violent crime in Illinois. But if the judges aren't going to even want to hear those cases, it's tough. The other part of the equation, I think, they really need to jump up. And Pat Fitzgerald, when he was the United States Attorney there, I consider him a friend.
Okay.
He did not want to do RICO investigations, and the Racketeer Influence Corrupt Organization is powerful. When I was in Los Angeles, there was a United States Attorney, actually head of the Civil Division, Tom O'Brien. Now, he was a great guy, former Top Gun fighter pilot. He was a gunslinger.
Okay.
But he said, Jody, I'll do a RICO investigation on 4 people. And that was powerful because when you do that, it's going to be a 25 years to life sentence. Not only is that very long, it takes out the whole organization. And the one thing you're going to know on the federal side are the 2 things. Number one, they're going to serve 80% of that sentence, and it's going to be in a location far, far, far away from the state of Illinois.
Okay.
So those are good deterrents, and that's why I always looked at Los Angeles as, okay, you're a bigger city, you got a massive number of gangs, just like Chicago. Why are your homicides half what Chicago's are? And it's because I think they have more aggressive prosecution. These RICO investigations terrorize gangs because it's not just you going down and me going down, it's the whole group. Most of those investigations, usually 25 to 30 people would go down, and it would be for 25 years minimum.
I think they just did something like that in New York.
Probably so. They're powerful. Yeah. Now, they are manpower intensive. That's understood. But O'Brien said, hey, this is the biggest problem Los Angeles has, and we're going to address it. Pat, for whatever reason, he just chose not to do it. So that would be an area. The other thing LA had that was good was called gang injunctions. If you went to prison, they would file a civil injunction when you got released that would not allow you to hang around with gangs, associated with gangs. You would be picked up and locked up again. Illinois had something like that. If they had it, I don't think they marketed it well. So there's just a lot of things it could do. And then you get more the holistic side. You got to give these young men alternatives. Oftentimes, the gang is the father of the family.
Right.
Because for whatever reason,
Right.
and that's a lengthy discussion we could have, but give them alternatives. To give them, say, hey, if you do this, get out of the gang, come to my church, I will work with you to get like an apprentice card, we'll say with a union as a welder. Give them an alternative so they can make a legitimate business. Because sadly, you stay in the gangs, you're going to be dead or you're going to be in prison. That's the normal outcome. And I've approached some of the young men like that before, and they go, okay, fair, but I got to feed my family. And I can make a lot of money, selling dope on the street with this gang. And I said, but you know the outcome. It goes, I got to feed my family. And if they don't have it, you look around some of the communities in Chicago, there's nothing there. There's no work. There is no work for anybody. So it's a big problem to do. But I would really try to ramp up the federal. I'd try to get all the criminal justice system working together. Faith-based community could do more, and they're powerful in Chicago. The black community has such strong faith-based leaders. Some not the best leaders. I think I'll steal one of your phrases, the bootleg preachers,
right.
Which unfortunately applies to some.
That.
But there's still opportunities there, and I think hopefully this new guy Brandon Johnson will be able to pull it all together. I'm a little bit skeptical hearing his initial comments and stuff. I don't think you can just send social workers into a situation without the police. There are times when that can be helpful, but you better have an armed police officer with them, because then what's the first thing that happens when one of these social worker gets killed? I went to the public health department and I said, hey, could you help us with this? Absolutely not. Number one, they don't like the 24/7 call out.
Okay.
And they didn't like that. And then they said, and my doctors and my medical people could get hurt. I go, yeah, but they could also save lives. They go, yeah, we're not getting into that. I said,
Really?
but you just talked about violent crime being like almost like a pandemic. Yeah, that was for the media. It ain't real.
Okay.
So it's just hard, man.
Okay.
It's really hard.
Okay. See, I didn't know all that. I wouldn't have known that. But let me ask you a question. Do you think? So right now they're trying to pick a superintendent. Okay, they got a bunch of different people. Okay, do you think it makes a difference if they do an outside person or somebody within the department? Now we know that you came from the outside, but I'm talking about today. What do you think?
It kind of depends on the situation. I don't know the dynamics that David Brown had. I don't know if things were really innovative. I think you got a great police department like Chicago. You want to reward the men and women who move up in that, and give them an opportunity to be superintendent. There are certain times I think when an outsider is good, when maybe there's some corruption or maybe there's just something that you need to change from the outside, because you can get some new ideas in. From a crime-fighting strategy, I thought Phil Klein, an inside guy, was fantastic.
Okay.
As an outside guy, I thought Gary McCarthy was good. Now, Gary maybe had some other issues, but for crime-fighting strategy, I think Gary is as good as any chief or superintendent in the United States. Maybe it was some personal vices that got in his way, but as in trying to tamp down crime, Gary was spectacular. Phil Klein, I always felt bad for him because he came in after Terry Hillard when murders were through the roof, mid-600s. And Phil came in and tamped them down overnight to the low 400s. And I'm not saying 400 murders in the city of Chicago is good, but that was almost like a 33% drop. And Phil never got the recognition for that. Bill Bratton, he dropped crime in New York. Well, he did, but why didn't Phil get some type of recognition nationwide as a tremendous crime fighter for what he did in the city of Chicago? So I always felt bad he never got the recognition he deserved. Then a couple things happened. You had Jerome Finnegan out there doing home invasions rather than search warrants, and the whole SOS section, which was a very effective tool. You got to blow that up because 12 people lost their way. We were able to bring something back akin to it with a little more accountability, a little more transparency, and I think that worked out well. But I always feel bad for Phil because he should have got far greater recognition than he did.
Okay. Well, I'm being told by credible sources that now that Mr. Johnson is coming in, that he's considering getting rid of Home and Square, like completely getting rid of it. And me personally, I don't think that's a good thing. I think you need to have those departments separate from, but I don't know exactly where it's going to go. But this is what I'm being told, so I don't know how that's going to work.
Is he just moving the location? Because some thought is you can take those centralized investigative units and you could attach them to the areas.
Okay.
So you break them down so they're not centrally located.
Mm-hmm.
LA kind of has something like that. They've got a certain number, I think, of detectives attached to the various precincts that they have out there, and then they also have a centralized unit. Now that creates kind of a morale issue because any of the big crimes are going to send it to major crimes, so we can't let those division or precinct detectives handle it. that has its own issues. But is he talking about getting rid of just Home Square, moving them out, or just getting rid of those entities?
I was just told Home Square, getting rid of Home Square. If you get rid of those entities, I think that would be a great mistake.
It'd be catastrophic.
It would be. So I'm not sure. This is what I was told. So I don't know all the things, and I'm sure he may be working through the process himself. So
do you know who's advising him?
No.
Who he's reaching out for?
No, I have no clue. No.
That'd be interesting. That'd be something I'd try to find out if I lived in Chicago. Like who's telling him what?
Well, if somebody's watching this, okay, and if you guys got information, contact me at Choker TV Modified and let me know. Then we can do some interviews, and maybe we can even help the situation. Maybe. I mean, it's possible. You never know. Sometimes.
You know, you were what, an officer for 30 years, and you did a bunch of different things. You know, from training to K-9 to working in the superintendent's office, from being on the street. You'd be a natural person for somebody just to talk to and say, hey, your perspective. You were an officer when things were good. You were there when things weren't so good. You were there when things were really bad. You saw the turnaround, the revert back to different things. What works? Tell us what works. So I'm hoping that the new mayor is reaching out to people like yourself to get a feel of what works in the city of Chicago. I kind of like that thing NBC did when they had Eddie and Gary and myself there. I think it could have been a little bit longer and talked a little bit more specific about things that work. But you know, it was a good getting three people together that worked in that job. I would have included Phil Klein for sure.
Oh, without a doubt.
But you know, I thought that was a good start.
But I got to go on kind of what you said. Me doing, I do it as a consultant, but I'm out of Chicago. Hey, listen, you guys enjoy yourself. Anyway. So and even like in talking about being out of Chicago, being in Arizona, I noticed something. I'm driving around. We discussed this yesterday, but I'm driving around. I don't have that tension on me. Look at it. You got blue skies. It's sunny. It's warm out here. I mean, who wouldn't like this place?
You come out and visit me in June or July or August, you might go, it is hot. And it is hot. But the one thing I always tell people, in Chicago in the winter, it's cold, you know, and you get those gray skies, and even though the snow comes down, it looks real pretty. 2 buses go through, and now it's like black snow. It looks real dirty. Out here, even in our worst part of the year, which would be like June, July, August, you still have bright blue skies, a lot of sun. So at least if you're sitting in your air-conditioned house and you look outside, it looks beautiful. And the other thing, we don't do daylight savings time out here. So the day just starts early. At 5 o'clock, I'm out hiking or riding my bike. At 4 o'clock, I'm out walking the dog. So you can do things early. Now by 10 o'clock, you're in because it's hot. If you notice, like the construction workers out here, they're out like driving nails at 4 in the morning. Yeah. At about 2, they're done. Because it gets really, really hot. You've been in those hot days, you can only take so much of that. Yeah. And it's cumulative. Every day, if you had to work outside in that heat, I give these guys credit. And, you know, we're worried about, you know, sun, you know, skin cancer and everything, so you got to be a little bit covered up, but it makes you even hotter. So, but I'll still take that over the humidity and the bugs of Florida, where I grew up. So I'm kind of a fan of the Arizona dry heat.
Okay. Oh, you grew up in
Florida. Yeah.
Okay. Now, what was your law enforcement? Because if people don't know, you were with the FBI, correct?
Right.
For how many years?
23.
Whoa, really? Okay. Now, of course, we know they work a little bit different than the municipal departments, but do you think that they can use some of that assistance from them? Well, they get assistance from the FBI, I believe, correct?
Yeah, I mean, after 9/11, I think the FBI realized we're much stronger working together and made a real commitment to that rather than the lip service that they'd been paying beforehand. So they started building formalized joint terrorism task forces, and then they kind of expanded that into like some of the safe street task forces. So it's always much stronger. The cops know the city, they know the people, they know that. The FBI brings in some of the government resources together. There's some different tools, there's some different statutes. Sometimes they give you bargaining power. If we get some knucklehead and we could charge him both federally or state, we can almost like give them options. Like, hey, here's the deal. You want to go to a safer place, you can go to a federal prison, kind of laid back, but you're going to serve like maybe 15 years on that 20-year sentence, and it's going to be in like North Dakota. We can take you to state, and you're going to serve like 6 years, and you'll probably get out in 2. So it gives you almost like a bargaining chip with some of the people, and but it works out so much better. And plus, with the federal government, there's always toys. Like if you're on a task force, you're going to get
like the
a secure radio system. Fugitive task force.
Yeah.
You're going to get good training. You're going to shoot all the time. You're going to see different ways. It's going to be more of that investigative mode. So I think it really blends the best of both agencies together when you do that. A story I always tell, when I was the special agent in charge in Philadelphia, we had at that point one of the major cases, terrorism cases in the United States. There was a group of 6 individuals that wanted to blow up Fort Dix and kill as many as civilians and soldiers as they could. We had a New Jersey state trooper as the lead agent on that. It wasn't an FBI agent. It was a New Jersey state trooper, Fred Fife. Great guy. And he ran the case. Now, he had support from FBI and from local, everybody that we had on our task force, but Fred was the man. And that was a really good case. We ended up taking all those folks down. We were really fortunate because we had multiple informants in the group. So we knew what was going on. We could almost play one against the other. They didn't know that each other were cooperating with us. And we ran that to the very end until we sold them firearms that had been deactivated. We took the firing pins out of them. But the intent was, okay, here's your intent. You really want to kill some people. Yeah, we need weapons. So here, we'll sell you the weapons. Now, we took the firing pins out so they could not be used, and then they were going to go to the range the next day and test them and zero them in. Well, that's when we had to arrest them that night because that would not have worked out. But it was it was a really fun case to work because when you had that type of information coming back in, you felt very comfortable and you could run it out a little longer because our fear was that this group might have been controlled from the Middle East. It wasn't. It was 6 people that had been radicalized locally. Okay. And they were kind of like a group of lone wolves. So we wanted to make sure it wasn't a bigger group, and maybe something like this was being planned in Chicago or being planned in New York or Los Angeles. We were able to isolate it in the New Jersey area. But that's the value of the task forces. You had the capabilities of every agency brought together, the information sharing, and that goes down the road. You build trust. It's always like, yeah, you can't trust the FBI. Well, the guys like yourself, you work with them. It's like, yeah, I can. They're good guys. They're just like we are. It's just a different world, but you can still trust them.
Yeah, because when I was with task force, I trusted everybody from the U.S. Marshals. I mean, there's not one person. Honestly, sometimes I trusted more of them than with CPD. I'm sorry.
You always said, who was your best partner in CPD?
Oh, my dog was my best partner. That's right, Wayno. You're my best partner. My K9 was my best partner.
Yeah.
But it's I look at the situation now. I don't look at it in a positive light. I really don't. I hope it gets to that point. But I guess any suggestions you may have. Okay, because we're probably going to end this. And first of all, I want to thank you. I definitely want to thank you for the interview. Because he has things to do, but I always feel that it's good to get information out. It's good to get a different perspective, especially somebody who's been there. I mean, you were in that office. You dealt with CPD. You dealt with City Hall. You dealt with the aldermen, the political. There was a lot of things you dealt with, and you have a different perspective. Of course, we didn't hit on all that because we would be talking for about an hour. Trust me. And even when, just to give you guys a background, I was his driver. Okay, I was his trusted driver. And let me tell you something. When I drove for him, I could drive as fast as I wanted to, and he was never scared. Never scared. Never scared. I'm saying that for a reason. But anyway.
Yeah, well, I just kind of hit it sometimes between him and his partner drivers. There were a couple times I'm like, you got this? Yeah, I got it. Okay, I'm just going to sit here because you're not going to kill yourself. I still remember Melvin was driving one time, and a guy was coming at it. He's lost control on the snow, and Melvin goes, hang on. And I look up, I see 2 trees, and my first thought was, this truck is not going to fit between those 2 trees. He didn't hit anything. And we went through I'm looking at the truck. There had to be like an inch on each side of that truck.
And he made it through.
I was blessed having you and Melvin. I just thought as top drivers to be with. I never worried about it. And you guys were just, you were drivers, and technically I was your boss, but you guys were friends. Yeah. And I don't know how many times I'd bounce ideas off you because you're in the car a lot. You're driving around. You're dealing with the crazy mayor. Nothing against you, Mayor Daley. I think Chicago would love to have you back. But you were a bit eccentric at times. And you hear stuff, and we could always trust you. It wasn't a question of like, we sit down in front of Walter. Who's he going to go tell? Never was an issue. And it was fun. It was fun going out. No. I wasn't out till 4 a.m. like Gary McCarthy was in Inglewood, or so he says. But we were out all the time Friday nights. We had fun. We ate with some of the community people. We interacted. We always found a good spot to go. And I learned a lot about Chicago from these guys, and it was fun. That's why I say I don't want anybody to think like I didn't enjoy that job, because it was a blessing to have that opportunity. Because the FBI, you don't work with people like that. You investigate people, but you don't have the interaction with the community and the citizens. And I don't know if I ever got you on a bicycle. I know I grabbed Melvin, much to his protesting, but riding bikes on the south side and stuff, just seeing people, kind of changes the dynamics.
Yeah.
Like, when you have your dog, people are friendly to you when you got a dog.
But even when I was on the bike unit, when I was on the
you
bike
were on
unit,
that? I didn't realize that.
When I was on the 21st district, I was in the bike unit, and people approached you differently,
Yep.
in a more positive way. They would speak to you. They would, even if you say, hey, let me talk to you for a second, they wouldn't take off running. They were like, hey, what's going on?
Yeah.
It was a positive
Because
thing.
you're out in the open, you're exposed
Yes.
to them. You're not behind the car and the wheels, and
Not only that, a couple of people on the lakefront, I raced on my bike, my city bike. I smoked them too. But anyway, that's another story. So it was fun. But see, also too, it was cool being, you could be professional and have fun at the same time, all
Yeah,
day long.
I know, and that's why I always laugh at that show, Blue Bloods, because I like Tom Selleck. It's a good show. I think a lot of their stories are true, but they never have fun. Every day he's brooding and, oh, this is bad. Boss, we got to tell you about this. I have to say, I'd say 80% of my time in Chicago PD, we had fun. We were laughing, we were joking around. There's other time we're serious. You know, officer gets hurt. You know, God forbid an officer gets killed. Mayor's pissed off at you. But for most of the time, you can have a lot of fun. If you can't have fun at your job, you need to find a new job.
Yeah. Yeah.
And even like riding around Friday night, we had fun.
Yeah.
You know, people are funny. I mean, you just got to recognize that people are funny, and you can have a good time.
And you can learn a lot from people just by talking to them, you know. But I kind of, to be honest with you, when I got on, I looked at it not as a job. I actually looked at it as a career. That's how I looked at it. I was like, man, this is a career.
It is.
And I was proud. I was like, man, I'm the police. But now,
Because it's more than just a job.
Yeah.
I mean, you can make it a 24/7 thing for you, and you get to work with people. You see really good, you see really bad. You can help people.
Yeah.
It is more than just a job. You go and do some for 8 hours, you leave. This way, you're thinking about, like, how could I be better? You know, you have a rough thing. How could I maybe handle that situation better? If you're just doing a job where you're just stocking shelves or something, or not really that exciting, or writing code for a computer. I know all the time when I was with Accenture, we'd bring these super smart kids in there to like writing code, and we started doing work in police department, and they're like in awe. They're going, man, these guys do a real job out here. And it was really fun when I talked to the firearms instructors, like in Seattle PD. I said, hey, can you take some of these folks out to the range and let them shoot? They go, is it safe? I go, yeah, they're really smart. They'll do what you tell them. But they were amazed when they picked up a firearm and they shot, and they go, we really have an appreciation for what you do. And I said, you ought to do ride-alongs with these guys. And a couple of them did. They go, we never realized it was like this. I go, yeah, can't see this on TV.
Yeah, and they only gonna show so much.
Yeah,
anymore.
yeah, and it's got to be exciting. A lot of times it's just bored. We took one of our gals from London out, who I love like a little sister, and I had her with Pat McKenzie and with Melvin, and we rode around, and she saw everything that night. I mean, we almost shot a guy, and he had a BB gun, but Melvin recognized her right away, which I don't know how. Plus, probably one of his relatives. I think the entire south side of Chicago is somehow related to Melvin. And she goes, this is amazing. And then we went out to breakfast. We had, a late night dinner at one of the more challenging areas. She thought that was amazing. She's from London. And she goes, this just doesn't happen in London. I said, this is Chicago, Illinois. It's a different animal.
It is a different animal. Definitely, definitely. Well, listen, I'm glad that you're in a place where you're comfortable in, that's pleasant, that you don't have the stress in. And also, thank you once again for the interview. I mean, I appreciate it.
Walter, there's nothing I won't do for you. We keep communicating a lot about firearms and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And that's why I keep encouraging you maybe to try to get to a state that's a little more gun friendly, like Arizona. Love to have you out here, you and your family. But I just think there's got a lot of passions that you like to do. And sometimes just where you live kind of inhibit those passions.
They
but
do.
I will do anything for you. You guys you were more than co-workers. You guys were friends, and I'm really blessed to have friends like you. And you can tell a lot of times some of my friends, I'm transitional. Like if I'm in this area, I'm friends with you, but then I move on, and it tells me maybe I wasn't that really good a friend. And it wasn't being me, but you have other stuff come up.
Right.
But I think of the people in Chicago, I've probably maintained more interaction, communicating with you via text or whatever, probably than anybody else.
Yeah.
But I like that because we share a lot of mutual things, with firearms and some of your motorcycles and stuff, and you're loving to drive. So we get to share a lot of things that transcend the job. So I wish you were out here longer. We go to the range and shoot.
Well, I plan on coming back, so I definitely. So once again, like I said, thank you. And thank you guys for watching. And listen, when you guys see a police officer out there, tell them thank you for your service. And Ask them, hey, how can we help each other out? There you go. Ask them, how can we help each other out?
It's a
And it may
good
make a
thing.
difference.
How can we help you?
Yeah.
How can we help you protect us?
There you go. So once again, thank you. Thank you guys for watching. Also, you can subscribe and like and comment. Even if it's bad comment, still comment.
Feedback's always welcome.
Always. Later.